Hi guys, it's Christine. Welcome back to my channel. This week I want to talk about Butter by Asako Yuzuki. It is translated by Polly Barton. It is the story of a woman named Minako Kaji who is in prison for having killed 3 lovers. We don't actually know if she's guilty or not at the start of the novel. And then you've got Rika, who is a journalist who she wants to get an interview. Like, the whole nation has become obsessed with this case, and she wants to get an interview with her. And her friend suggests, well, because she's not giving interviews to anybody, her friend suggests, instead of trying to appeal to her about the case, why don't you appeal to what she loves? And this woman, who is a potential murderer, had a food blog. So Rika writes to Kaji in prison and says, I would really like your beef stew recipe. And so then she is granted an interview, and then they start to form a relationship. I really, really, really wanted to like the book more than I did, but it is way too long. Unfortunately, when a book is too long like that, like, it's at least 100 pages too long. And it's not a small book either. Let me see. It's like 452 pages. It's a big book. So you could have lost at least 100 pages of that, if not more, and made everything just that much more succinct. I wouldn't say that it really qualifies as a thriller. If the pacing had been better, if they had gone in, like if an editor had gone in and cut out 100 pages or 200 pages, I think they could have tightened it up enough that there would have been more tension, and it would have created a more thriller-like story. But it's not really that kind of book. Like, I think the main themes of the book are kind of feminism and Japan's ideas of gender roles and the burden of expectations on particularly women in Japan. There's a great quote that's actually on the back of the book that the Kaji says to Rika when she meets her. And she says, there are 2 things that I simply cannot tolerate: feminists and margarine. I love that. It's such a good line. So you've got this woman who she's accused of having murdered 3 of her lovers, and all of them she kind of drew in with her cooking and her more sort of traditional view of relationships. And the interesting thing there, I think, is because she puts butter in everything, we know, like, the book doesn't say how much, but we know that she's overweight, and that's kind of like a really big deal in Japan. And to me, one of the interesting parts of that is, like, is the reason that everyone is so obsessed with her case because she's fat and had a bunch of lovers, where, you know, you live in a society where it's like you have to be so rigid and so controlled and be thin, 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 and that's the only way to get a man's affections. And here she comes with her buckets of butter and her, you know, big belly, and she still is snagging guys. So I found that really interesting. I really liked that exploration of gender roles of the characters, as well as the expectations of women in society to carry the expectations of men. One quote that I really liked from the book is, "In principle, all women should give themselves permission to demand good treatment, but the world made doing so profoundly difficult." I really like that. A lot of the characters, as Rika has this relationship with Kaji, she then starts to try, you know, she sort of starts to pay more attention to food And the book does a really good job of like describing food and the way it's prepared and the way it's consumed and the feelings that she gets when she eats these dishes. It's very descriptive, and I really, really like that side of it. And as she tries out more and more recipes and more restaurants that Kaji is sending her to, she gains weight, and her friends and her boyfriend all think, well, there's something wrong with you because you've lost control, because you're putting on weight. And it's such an interesting idea, and unfortunately not like a foreign idea, that if you are overweight, then you must lack self-control. And never at any point is, but are you happy? Part of that question. So I really like that. I really like the themes in the book, and I wanted to like it more, but the pacing of it, because it was so bloated, it became repetitive and it lost its way a couple of times with the plot. And then I just can't help but feel like if it had been pared down, it would have had much more of an impact. I do also feel like some of those themes that they're exploring, like the misogynist culture of Japan, could have been explored. Like, they needed to go further, It didn't go far enough. It was like pointing out some stuff, but a lot of what it was pointing out was kind of a little obvious. And I would have liked to have seen it go further. And it just didn't. It just sort of lost its way. And again, I just feel like if they had pared it down, it would have, the themes would have been stronger, and the thriller aspect of it might have felt more pressing, more tense, which you really need if it's going to be a thriller. But to me, this book isn't really, that wouldn't be a fair categorization of the novel. So I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I really feel like it could have been so much better if it had been shorter. If there had been less of it, it would have had a bigger impact. The character of Kaji is actually inspired by a true case, the Konkatsu killer. I'm not sure how close they are, but yeah, apparently, like, it's not based on a true story. It's not her story particularly, but they took, I think she poisoned her lovers, and so they took that and ran with it for this book. And I like that side of it. I thought that was really cool. But I would have liked to have seen it just, ironically trim some of the fat off of this book, and it would have been just so much better. So unfortunately, I don't know that I would really recommend it. It is like, it's not a bad story, and the descriptive parts of it, like describing the food and how it's prepared and the feelings that it gives Rika as she's eating these foods that she's never tried before, because her character is just sort of like a grab something from 7-Eleven kind of a person, She doesn't have any interest in cooking or food when the novel begins, but as the story goes along, she gets more and more interest because of Kaji's influence. And it just, the descriptions are A+. Like, they're really, really good. I love that part of it. So it's not a bad story, but it really needed to be edited down, I think. It would have benefited from some harsh editing. I really, really, really like the cover. It's kind of made to look like a package of butter. And then you've got like bloody handprints here. That's a little misleading because, like I said, it's not really a thriller. It's, did she do it or didn't she? But it's not really a thriller in that way, because it doesn't ever, there's no like flashbacks to the murders or anything like that. So maybe a little misleading, but I just really like this cover. I just think this is really cool, the way they made it look like a package of butter. So anyway, that is it. So yeah, let me know if you've read it, if you also thought that it was a little too long, or, am I wrong? Did you really like it? I would love to hear your thoughts. So Butter by Asako Yuzuki, it is not bad, but it's a bit of a grind. So that's it for me this week. I'll see you later.